It's great to see everybody, but I'm happiest to see Will Schwarzenbach.
Who are you happiest to see, Kelly?
Will.
Okay.
He's presenting today.
You're muted, Will.
Ah, there you are. Can you hear me now?
You sound fantastic, Will.
Now you can see me and hear me.
Yes.
Although I have to apologize ahead of time. I'm not as familiar with WebEx as I am with Teams, so hopefully I don't cause any problems there.
Hello?
I'm guessing you were the backup, Kelly, if Will didn't show up. So why you're so happy to see him.
Yeah, I was like the second string.
Can you guys hear me? This is Jacob Richardson.
Yeah, who is it?
This is Jacob Richardson with the PSC.
Yep, we hear you. How you doing?
Okay, I'm having an issue with getting into the meeting link. My apologies with that. Is everyone there and ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well then, good afternoon, everyone. This is the time scheduled for a virtual technical conference in docket number 21-057-01, Dominion Energy Utah's Integrated Resource Plan for plan year June 1st, 2021 to May 31st, 2022. My name is Jacob Richardson, and I am the PSC's facilitator for this conference. Portions of the technical conference will be closed to preserve the confidentiality of sensitive information. And for the benefit of all who are participating in this technical conference, we ask that if you are not speaking, that you please mute your connection. We'll turn the time now to Dominion Energy. Thank you.
Right. Start us off there, Will.
Hey, well, welcome everybody. I'm Will Schwarzenbach. I'm manager in our gas supply group here with Dominion Energy Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho. And I'm gonna. Some of you have seen a lot of these slides before, but I'm really going to walk through and recap all of our hedging efforts that really started over a year ago. At this point, we started talking about this. I think the first person to ask a question was Mr. Wheelwright. Asked about this. I think it was at one of our IRP technical conferences, over a year ago, and we kind of started on this road of looking at our supply and our hedging, and this presentation kind of gives a summary of where we went with all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and try and start sharing my presentation here. So let's see if I can do this. I think I'm sharing my screen. It says I am, so hopefully it's not lying. Okay. Sorry, I got to figure out how to control it now. That's step 2. There we go. Okay, so when we started looking at this, the reason we started looking at it is we had considered our supply as hedged due to our Wexpro production. We've got about, if you look on the 2021-2022 IRP, we're showing about 50% of our supply for the year will come from our Wexpro production. So if you look on an annual basis, we are 50% hedged. However, if you look a little more closely at those numbers, which we're going to do today, you'll see that it's actually quite a different story once you get into the heating season, and even more so just a peak day or a design day. So I'm going to go forward a slide here, And we're going to talk about our typical winter day here on the left, which is about a 34-degree day. Again, this really just represents your standard day in the winter. And then on the right, you've got a peak day. So what you have here is our breakdown of what the supply looks like on either one of those days. And as you can see, we've got Wexpro only being 24% of our typical winter day and 14% of our peak day. So that's quite a bit of difference between the annual amount and then what we see on cold days. Now, the rest of this breakdown, we're gonna talk a little bit more about what they are and what they represent. But you've got storage. That's obviously just withdrawals out of our storage facilities. You've got your spot gas, which is gas you purchase on the day. Peaking is contracts that we have. There's obligations for the suppliers to deliver that gas on any day we call on it. But pricing wise, it's very similar to spot. Very subjected to the daily prices. Your baseload index, that's what we call here base index. That's a baseload gas that we take every day, but at a daily index price. So we're going to take it every day, regardless of, and it'll be impacted by the spot pricing or the daily pricing. And then we have baseload that's at a first of month pricing. So whatever that first of month price locks in at, that's what that baseload gas will be. So you can see the breakdowns, and we're going to come back to this. But the point here is that they're different on a typical winter day as they are on a peak day. Okay, each of those supply that I just talked about kind of falls into different categories. Wexpro obviously is cost of service, so not subject to daily pricing, not subject to even first of month pricing. It's more of the cost. There is some price subjectivity in there, but not a lot. Storage also we consider hedged, because that is going to be the cost of that is really what it costs us to put in there, plus the cost of storing it. So not subject to market fluctuations. If we see a steep price in the market, that's not going to impact the cost of what we're pulling out of storage. Our RFP contracts. Those are the contracts that we sign up for as part of the IRP process. And we usually wind up with three different types, which are baseload, that's at a first of month. Again, that's that one we talked about. And then our baseload index, daily index, and our peaking daily index. And then all the way on the left here, this is the daily index spot gas. So that's gas to me that is it's what we make up the rest of it of our demand with on any day. That's kind of the needle peak type supply right there. That comes in at generally the highest pricing, and it's also the one that we have to go out and fight others for. So reliability could be a concern with the spot gas as well. So this is just a little more detail that I've already kind of talked about, but the Wexpro pricing is cost-based, not market-based. The RFP contracts are established ahead of time based on a first-of-month index. They have the same, some of the daily contracts will have that same exposure. Storage contracts that I talked about, and then the most exposed, again, is that spot gas. So let's kind of take a look at a recap, really, of what all that hedging looks like, and then I'll take a little breather here, and you guys can catch up with any questions you might have. But again, on the far left, we have what it looks like on an annual basis. We consider ourselves about 50% hedged. So I've broken it out here. The red is what we consider not hedged, although I've got it switched, sorry, on the first one. I apologize for that, but it's 50-50, so it's not going to be very confusing. But the 50% hedged is the blue, and the not hedged is the red. So Wexpro and IRP are backwards on that one. Sorry about that. The typical winter day, if you look at that, we are about 69% what we considered hedged. So when I say hedged there, I'm really referring to not subject to daily price spikes. So where this comes into play is if you think about, we started this process back over a year ago, and we actually had a IRP technical conference on this right before February and that steep pricing event that we had. So if you think about this in terms of that February event, the stuff that is in blue would not have been heavily impacted by that pricing event, and the stuff that's in red would have been impacted by that pricing event. So on a typical winter day, you're going to see 69% not impacted and 31% impacted by those daily pricing. If you kind of crank down the dial and make it colder and get to a peak day event based on our contracts going into this heating season, we would have about 44% that is hedged. So that's your first of month contracts, your Wexpro and your storage, and everything else, the remaining 56% would be subject to daily pricing spikes. I'll take a little breather. Just if anybody has any questions at this point, or if I've missed anything at this point, let me know.
I have a question. This is Eric Orton.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Will. Are the peak day charts, are those off of the IRP peak day, or are those off of actuals you've had in the past, or are the percentages the same either way?
That's a good question. They are based on our forecasted design day. So that is the 1 in 20 year event, the -5 temperature. So not the highest send out day, but our actual design day.
Okay, good. Thanks, Will.
Okay, I'm gonna keep moving forward. I know I threw kind of a lot of information out there right then, so I just wanted to give you all a chance to catch up. Okay, as we looked at that graph, we said, okay, what are some options that we can consider for increasing that hedged amount? And as part of this process, just to recap, we've had a number of meetings with what we consider some of the stakeholders, the Division of Public Utilities, the Office of Consumer Service. So we've kind of met a number of times and gone over a lot of this and incorporated feedback along the way. The 5 really, I guess, options that we looked at a little further. The first one is increasing the first of month baseload contracts. The next one is increasing Wexpro, the cost of service production, increasing and getting more storage contracts, and also purchasing financial instruments, something like that we considered. And then lastly, we looked at, and I think this one was actually for some, based on feedback that we got along the way, was we looked at increasing just fixed price baseload contracts. So it's kind of a combination of the first one, and then those financial instruments kind of come into play as well. So I'm going to dig into each one of these as we go here. The first one I want to look at is, acquiring more first of month contracts. So these are just basically baseload contracts that would be at what we call first of month pricing. So each month they put out, kind of based on what gas was selling for during bid week, it fixes that price for the month. So anything you bought first a month, it'll be a set price for that bid week pricing, and you will pay that for the full month. Now, pricing during that month could go up, it could go down, your daily pricing, but you're going to pay whatever that first of month pricing was. That has, positives and negatives there, right? If your first of month pricing, if there's a lot of fear, concern in the market, your first of month pricing could be quite high. And then if for some reason maybe the temperatures come out warmer across the country than it was expected to, and your prices fall, then you're still paying that high first of month pricing, and vice versa could happen as well. Like if you were paying first of month pricing for February of last year, you were you were probably going to make out pretty well, because then you wouldn't have paid the high daily pricing during that week in February. But we have seen historically, and I think my boss provided some color for us in our discussion there about, historically, during the polar vortex that really impacted the East Coast a few years ago, they wound up on the other side of that, where there was a lot of concern going forward. The first of month pricing was quite high, and they had some contracts that were locked in and paid the full month. So there's just different risk with this one. It doesn't take all of your exposure away, but it increases your exposure to that monthly instead of daily. The next one we considered and are still considering is increasing the Wexpro supply. With this one, it helps cost to customers remain stable due to the physical gas supply that we get delivered. This is exactly what we have right now with our Wexpro supply. It would just be, okay, can we get more of that specifically to address additional supply on those winter months? It does provide additional insurity for reliability with because Wexpro does a lot of freeze prevention measures. That was one of the issues that occurred in the mid-continent and Texas during that event in February. Was they found that a lot of the producers in that area were not doing as much as they could have to do freeze prevention measures, because it's Texas and it doesn't get that cold except when it does. Well, Wexpro, we know, has presented, and they've kind of explained, and they review with us all of their operating procedures for what they do for some of that freeze prevention. Sorry. And they own and operate the gathering systems. They can do whatever they can to ensure that runtime. So there's a little more reliability. Right now, the market conditions are actually favorable to purchase more wells with existing production, and those are good prices. So in addition to reducing the price volatility and increasing the supply, they would save. Wexpro could save customers money compared to the forward strip prices right now. And increasing to 65%, which is what we've talked about, that would provide us an additional about 32,000 decatherms a day of production that we could be getting, and that would be 32,000 a day less that we'd have to buy on a spot market on the winter months. That higher supply cap would allow Wexpro to consider a broader range of property targets. With the 55%, they'd have to buy smaller properties with less current production in order to develop. Whereas if they had a little more space, it would open up their availability to some different properties. And something to keep in mind with this option is that any Wexpro acquisition would require regulatory approval under the Wexpro 2 process. So even if we went in and got approval to increase the percentage to, would it be 65? Each property would still have to gain approval to be included in the Wexpro 2 agreement. So, the next option that we considered, and again we consider to continue to consider these going forward, is potential storage options. So we've spoken with Spire. We continue to meet with them. I actually met with them today. They're still looking at opportunities. We are working with Magnum, trying to get some discussions going there to see what they could offer us going forward. Dominion Energy Questar Pipeline, They are sold out at Clay Basin. We've continued to talk to them, but we're also looking at the aquifers, our current aquifer contracts. They've looked at that in the past, and we've asked them to revisit some of the possibilities for increasing the capacity of those facilities, and specifically increasing the withdrawal capacity, so that we could actually just take more gas out without any additional inventory. So they think they can do that, and we are going to do a test this winter. There is no cost to that or anything, so we're gonna try and see what's available there. And we also considered, we could look at additional LNG capacity. We know we're in the process of building our LNG facility right now. That is there for supply reliability, but we could also look at potential expansion for the purpose of hedging. Storage, that does provide some additional benefits, both in injections and withdrawal, with operational control. So you don't have to take it every day. You don't have to, you're not locked into doing one thing or another. You really do have that flexibility on warm days to inject and colder days to withdraw. The problem with storage right now, and if you look at it outside the cost of just hedging, if you're trying to justify the cost beyond this year's forward strip, which we'll talk about that here in a minute, it's really not it's not in the money to justify. So it would be additional cost, and we've seen that some of the costs are pretty high, because now storage is in demand, at least in the short term. And feel free, if you have any questions or concerns, and this goes for anyone, if you have any questions or concerns as we go through this, feel free to interject and ask questions or point out anything you'd like as we go forward. The next option we looked at is financial instruments. So just purchasing financial contracts that mitigate the risk of price spikes. So this doesn't do anything in terms of reliability. It really just put some financial hedges onto the gas that we're already buying. The concern here is that there's limited liquidity in these contracts. What I mean by that is most of those contracts sell at kind of a Henry Hub pricing. So you're looking at hedging the gas overall. If overall prices of gas throughout the country go up, then your hedge would cover that. If you look back at February, again, the event we keep looking at and that we're really trying to mitigate, those Henry Hub prices really didn't go up. I don't think they got above, I think, $7 or $8, or maybe $9 or $10, but they didn't go in the $200 range that we were in. So even if you were hedged against Henry Hub pricing, it wasn't going to help you very much in that localized event. And that's to me what we're really trying to protect against, is those either capacity related events that cause big price spikes, or weather related events that hit certain parts of the country and maybe not others. And this type of contract wouldn't really do that. So if you look back at the 2019 or 2021 type pricing events, like I said, it's not going to cover you like we're looking for in this situation. So where this kind of evolved into is, well, what about just buying additional fixed price baseload gas? So that's something that we looked at, and that's available. So the idea there is to purchase that gas through an RFP. We would look at winter months, so just buying the gas in December, February. So now you're looking at months where you can absolutely use the gas, not have to, put it into storage or anything like that. You could request proposals for gas at locations that match your transportation capacity. So we are pretty fortunate that we have capacity at a bunch of different locations, so we can get a diversity of the supply. And we could put that in the RFP, and as you'll see, this is something that we have done. So Increasing reliability by decreasing the amount of spot gas purchase on the day. So this is gas that if you did this, you would have contracted to be delivered every single day, and it's not you're not out there really trying to fight for it on the day. Say, hey, sell it to me instead of this other person. They've already sold it to you, and now it's they'll be delivering it. It does increase exposure to current pricing for the winter heating season. So whenever you go in for your fixed price bids, whoever's giving you the bids is going to look at what forward pricing looks like at that point. So it's you can kind of generally you can pick and choose the right time to go ahead and look at to lock those contracts in. But you can be exposed also to high pricing, I guess high price forecasts. So again, it's not going to be quite the spikes that we saw in February type thing, though, because it does reduce that exposure to your daily and your monthly pricing during the heating season, because you've got the price locked in. So if you did these today, you would lock in at whatever today's pricing is for December, January, and February. And that's what you would pay for this gas when you get it in those months. So those were kind of the options that we looked at. The next thing we did is in July of 2022. It was actually July 22nd of 2021. We had a working session with Dominion, the office, and the division. And what we actually did in that session, we looked through historical demand. So I pulled the historical demand for every day, every winter day between 2018 and 2021 to look and see, okay, what really was the demand like versus our current hedging plan, and how much room do we have to take more baseload gas if we were to do it. We also reviewed the design day demand and the current hedging plan. And what we really came up with was that sweet spot for where we felt we could take the gas every day during that period was about 80,000 decatherms. So the recommendation going forward was to do it was to get 80,000 decatherms of additional gas for that December through February period. That gas will provide reliable supply because, again, it's contracted for every day and being delivered every day. And there's actually, we had to look at the cost of that gas at a fixed price versus what the savings might be if we had price spikes. Interestingly, we recommended. We'll tell you about what that pricing looks like. That's going to be the interesting part you got to hold on for. The recommendation going forward was that we were going to buy 80,000 of fixed price. We decided that we were going to do it only for 1 year. Our credit department did have concerns about going beyond that, and we'd have to work with them on the counterparties. But really, it was driven by current pricing. With current pricing being as high as it is right now at this time period, we didn't really want to lock that pricing in going forward. When you look at the forward curves, you'll see why. This option, the 1 year option for 80,000, we still maintain the ability to do other things, right? We still have the ability to add additional Wexpro going forward. We're continuing to evaluate that. We have the ability to layer in some monthly, first a month or even more fixed price contracts as the winter goes on. If we see that, demand is expected to be really high for January, for example, we could go in and add some more contracts in there. It also maintains the possibility going forward of more storage contracts. We could still do those going forward. So we felt it was a good direction to go in for this heating season. Again, some of those other options like your Wexpro option or additional storage options, a lot of those really weren't even available for this heating season. So this seemed like the best solution for 2021-2022 heating season. And I don't know. I know on Teams there's a way to raise your hand. I don't know if there is or is not a way here, but if there is, I don't see anybody raising your hand. So somebody just interrupt me if there's a question. Okay, so what you're looking at here.
Well, you have a question in the chat from John Harvey. It says, what is the total current storage in terms of decatherms?
In terms of inventory, we have about, I'd call it about 15 to 16 BCF of storage inventory. In terms of withdrawals, which on a day is probably the more important number to me, our MRD at Clay Basin's about 111,000, and all set at the aquifers, we're counting on about 135,000 out of those aquifers on a winter day. So you're looking at about, I don't know, let's call it 250,000 decatherms of storage withdrawal. Does that answer your question?
So thanks. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming, yes.
Okay. I don't see the chat, I guess because I'm sharing and I have the other thing up. So if there's something in the chat, somebody please interrupt me because I do not see the chat function. I don't know if I have a way that I can show that, but
we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the RFP that we put out for fixed price baseload proposals. So again, the term December through February of this year. The volume we asked for, nothing smaller than 5,000 decatherms a day and up to 80,000 decatherms a day. If they were giving multiple proposals at different locations, we asked that they tell us that, here's 20,000, you can take it either at this location or not. It's not 40 combined kind of thing. We asked for numerous delivery points. Again, we tried to match these delivery points up with places we had capacity that we could take the gas. The pricing, we wanted fixed price only. So we were really looking at fixed prices for this. And then we did let everyone know that they'd be subject to Dominion Energy credit approval. We did not have any issues with that as we went forward.
Hey, Will, this is Michelle. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I had to use a different system today. I have a question that I should have asked earlier, but I think you're about to go into confidential. I think it'd be better to ask before we go confidential.
Okay.
Are you cool with that? Is that all right?
You're right. And our next slide, the slide says confidential right on the front. So we're there.
Okay. So before you go into I think you'll be going into the RFP responses next. But before this RFP, what you did was you went through how we evaluated a bunch of different options that were available. And I think it would be helpful if you could speak to the LNG plant. Because you remember how we did have a brief conversation about to what extent is that able to partially work in this case, not at all work in this case, under these types of circumstances. I feel like that might be helpful to share.
Sure. And if everybody remembers, the LNG plant, really our reasoning for that was supply reliability. So the answer is yes, it could physically be used for this. If pricing were to spike like it did in February, we could, once it's done, we could physically do this. The question would then become, would we do it? And the answer in my mind lies a lot in when does the event occur? If the event occurred in December, I would err on the side of no, we probably would not use it unless it's an extreme case. Mainly because if we did use that, and maybe we use it for a day or two and we've got 10 days of supply sitting there, but if we did fully utilize that LNG facility and we drained it because of pricing in December, there's no way to quickly fill it back up and then we would be exposed the rest of the heating season to any supply reliability concerns. On the flip side, this latest event occurred in February, which statistically is after the probability of us getting or seeing a peak day here in Utah happens, before February 14th. So I think, as the case would have it, in in February, we may have used it for a day or two. I would not want to use it for until it's empty kind of thing. But I think when it happens is a big component of what's going on and how long it's expected to occur. So it could physically do it, but we would have to look at the circumstances to really see if we would use it to offset high prices.
Yeah, I mean, I would add, Will, it's more of an art than a science, right? Because you'd also be looking at the other tools that you have available and where they're at as well. Like your aquifers, are they full? Are they empty? Are they in between? So it's really kind of a portfolio decision that you're looking at as you're making these determinations, right?
Right, and again, if we go back and revisit February, the first few days of the event, we were really able to mitigate with our existing storage. We were using it as hard as it would go, basically, and we were able to mitigate it. Well, as we had to drop down the withdrawal volumes out of those storage, and the event was still going on, and it was expected to for another day or two. And again, it was, we were getting towards the middle or late February. I think in that event, for those last couple days, I think, yes, we would have used the LNG facility for that, because again, it would be a short duration. We were only looking at another day or two. It was late in the heating season, so if we did wind up draining that facility, we could have the summer and the spring and summer coming up to refill it. So I think in the February circumstance, yes, we would have used it. But yeah, there's a lot of operational questions that have to go into that before you can just say, yes, we would use it, or no, we wouldn't. Does that answer your question, Michelle?
I'm sorry, I'm double muted. Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right. And as Michelle alluded to, our next slide puts us into the confidential portion of this. I don't know. I'll let Jen tell me if we have to wait, or if